So let me ask you, do you think you could actually get by on just $7 a day? That's $50 to last the whole week. That's it. No extra cash, no shortcuts. Just me, $50, and a week that's probably going to teach me some tough lessons, maybe a few clever tricks, and honestly at least one thing I didn't expect. This wasn't a challenge, this was survival, and what happened shocked me more than I expected. Let's get this straight. I live in a city. I didn't move back in with my parents, I didn't raid my pantry. I started the week with a fresh $50 bill. Everything, food, transport, life, had to come out of that. The rules were $50, no outside help, no freebies or donations, rent excluded. Everything else, on me. And yeah, I tracked every cent. Day one hit like a slap. $50 felt like nothing. I couldn't afford my usual $5 coffee. I skipped breakfast, lunch was rice and eggs, dinner, same thing. By day two, I was already rationing ketchup like it was liquid gold. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd count out condiment packets like they were precious gems, but there I was, hunched over the kitchen table, lining up every ketchup, mustard, and soy sauce packet I could find. Each one felt like a tiny lifeline, a splash of flavor in an otherwise bland and repetitive menu. I started to realize just how much I'd taken these little things for granted, how easy it was to grab a handful at a fast food place and never think twice. Now, every drop mattered. I even found myself scraping the insides of the packets with a butter knife, determined not to waste a single bit. It was humbling and honestly, a little bit funny. Who knew ketchup could become a symbol of survival? I started Googling meals under $1 like my life depended on it, because honestly it did. My search history was suddenly filled with things like cheapest protein sources, how to make rice interesting, and meals with 5 ingredients or less. I scrolled through endless blogs and YouTube videos, taking notes on recipes that stretched $1 further than I thought possible. I learned about the magic of lentils, the versatility of eggs, and how a can of beans could be transformed into 3 different meals if you got creative enough. It was a crash course in resourcefulness, and I was determined to pass. But here's where it got real: walking everywhere. Suddenly every trip outside became a strategic decision. Did I really need to go to the store, or could I make do with what I had? Could I combine errands to save steps? I started mapping out the most efficient routes, timing my walks to avoid the hottest part of the day, and carrying a water bottle everywhere I went. The city felt bigger than ever, and distances I'd never thought twice about now seemed daunting. I refused to spend $2 on a bus ride, so I walked 8 miles in the sun just to save money. The heat was relentless, and every step felt heavier than the last. I could feel the sweat trickling down my back, my shirt sticking to my skin. But I kept going. I kept telling myself that every dollar I saved was another meal, another day I could make it through. I started to notice things I'd never seen before. Quirky little shops, murals on the sides of buildings, the way the city changed from block to block. It was exhausting, but it was also eye-opening. And yeah, my feet totally hated me for it. By the end of the day they were throbbing, and I collapsed onto the nearest curb, rubbing my sore arches and wondering how people did this every day. But as I sat there I realized something. I was learning to stretch every resource, every dollar, and every ounce of energy. Day 2 was tough, but it was teaching me just how resilient I could be. By day 3, I felt like I had leveled up into a full-on budgeting ninja. The first couple of days were rough, honestly. I was still figuring out what I could and couldn't afford, and every dollar felt like it was slipping through my fingers. But by now, I was in the zone. I had my notepad out, tracking every cent, and I started to see patterns in my spending. It was almost like a game, and I was determined to win. I realized that if I wanted to make it through the week, I had to get creative, resourceful, and a little bit ruthless with my budget. Every decision mattered, and I was ready to take on the challenge. My first hack? Breakfast. I bought a $1.50 bag of oats, and it turned out to be a total lifesaver. That single bag gave me 3 solid breakfasts, oatmeal every morning, sometimes with a banana if I could spare the change. It wasn't fancy, but it was filling, warm, and kept me going. I started to appreciate the simple things, like the comfort of a hot bowl of oats on a chilly morning. It made me realize how much we take for granted when we're not watching every penny. For lunch and dinner, I got even more strategic. I picked up a $2 can of beans, and with a little bit of rice, I managed to stretch it into 3 separate meals. It was basic, sure, but it was nutritious and kept me full. I started to experiment with spices and whatever leftovers I could find just to keep things interesting. Every meal felt like a small victory, proof that I could make a little go a long way. But I didn't stop there. I scoured the app store for every free food near me app I could find. I signed up for loyalty programs, checked out local food banks, and even found a community fridge in my neighborhood. It was amazing how many resources were out there if you just knew where to look. I started to feel like a detective, always on the hunt for the next freebie or deal. It was a whole new world of saving money, and I was all in. To save on my phone data, I made the public library my second home. I'd head there to use the free Wi-Fi, charge my phone, and even get some work done. The library became my secret weapon, not just for internet, but for a quiet place to plan my next moves. I realized how much money I could save just by being a little more intentional about where I spent my time. Water was another thing I stopped taking for granted. Instead of buying bottled water, I started filling up my reusable bottle at public fountains and parks. It was a small change, but over the week, it saved me a surprising amount of money. Plus, it felt good to cut down on plastic waste. Every refill was a little reminder that small habits add up. And then there was the barter system. One afternoon, I helped a neighbor carry some groceries up the stairs, and in return, they handed me 2 apples. It was such a simple exchange, but it made my day. It reminded me that sometimes, community and kindness can fill the gaps that money can't. Yes, I'm serious. Bartering is alive and well, if you're willing to ask. By the end of day 3, I realized something huge. When money's tight, creativity just explodes. Every challenge became an opportunity to think outside the box, to find new solutions, and to appreciate the little wins. I was learning to stretch every dollar, but more importantly, I was learning to trust myself to figure things out, no matter how tough it got. Day 5 broke me. My body was tired, my brain was foggy, and I hadn't had meat in days. I was hangry and honestly hopeless, just sitting in the park watching people eat $15 burgers like it was nothing. And for the first time, I truly understood what living paycheck to paycheck feels like. It's not just the hunger, it's the shame, the silence, the stress. But day 6, I woke up different. I stopped focusing on what I couldn't have and started being grateful for what I did. Key mindset shifts. A simple meal still fills you. Walking builds discipline. Spending doesn't equal living. And honestly, time feels slower when you're not swiping a card. By day 7, I still had $3 left, and a brand new respect for people who do this every single week. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard, humbling, but also transformative. I realized how much we waste food, time, money, and how rich we really are. Not in dollars, but in options. Would I recommend this challenge? Absolutely. But with a twist, try it for just 1 week. When you strip life down to the basics, something incredible happens. You start to notice the small things you usually overlook. The taste of a simple home-cooked meal, the satisfaction of making your own coffee, the quiet pride in resisting impulse buys. Suddenly the noise of endless choices fades away, and you're left with what really matters. What matters starts to shine through the clutter. You realize how much joy can come from a walk in the park, a conversation with a friend, or even just a moment of quiet reflection. It's not about deprivation, it's about clarity. You learn to appreciate the essentials, and you might even discover a new sense of freedom in having less. If this experiment opened your eyes, or even just made you curious, smash that like button to let me know you're with me. And don't keep this to yourself. Share this video with a friend who's always complaining about being broke, but somehow manages to spend $200 a month on Starbucks and takeout. We all know someone like that, right? Maybe this is the nudge they need to see how much they could save, or just to laugh at my struggle. Either way, sharing is caring, and you might just inspire someone to try their own version of this challenge. And hey, if you want to see me take this to the next level, like surviving on just $1 a day, drop a "do it" in the comments below. Seriously, I read every single one, and your ideas are what keep these challenges going. So what do you think? Should I go for it? Let's make it happen together. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to see what wild adventure we take on next.